Okay, well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7th Annual Shale Gas Conference run by the Canadian Institute. We'd like to welcome you all to our Shale Conference. And I'm here, I'm the chairman of the conference. My name is Basim Faraj, and my co-chair is Richard Moorman. And we have a great treat for you this year. George Mitchell, the great George Mitchell, agreed kindly to chat with us about the revolution that he actually started, the shale gas revolution that is now becoming global. And I would like to welcome George. Thank you so much for having us.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. And I would just ask you, why did you look at Barnett Shale? What made you think of the Barnett Shale when you were exploring there?
Well, we were exploring all over this country since '46. We came in. We had this 9 partners, Jewish people, and one of them was a friend of mine named Pulaski. And he was a real good partner. So he said, I got a hot deal. I said, well, where is it? He says, my Chicago bookie's got a deal. I said, what the hell do you think that worn-out thing's going to be? That doesn't have a chance, but I'll look at it anyway. So I looked at it, and it looked very promising. So then we agreed to take the deal, we drilled the well, and made a discovery in the Fort Worth Basin. And then the Caddo, right above the Barnett was below. Okay. So we drilled quite a few wells. By that time, we were making pretty good wells, and we finally ended up having an eighth interest and then a quarter, then we'd buy a half interest. And we built up the company that we had. By the time we sold the company to Devon in 2002, we had about 1,500 people working for me in oil and gas, and 1,500 people working for me in the Woodlands project, the big real estate project.
Right. Yeah.
So we had a big company at that time, and we started from 3 people, and doing the work at night with logs that I couldn't afford to buy, turn them back the next morning. And we were very successful finding oil and gas as independents. So we had a good reputation. Now what happened in the Barnett, we were in the Fort Worth Basin, drilling the Caddo now. And we had, at that time, we had drilled maybe 100 wells in the Fort Worth Basin, made gas wells, where some of the majors had left the gas wells. They didn't understand fracturing at that time.
Right. So
they had good shows of gas, but they didn't test it right. In fact, we actually went into 12 wells that they abandoned, but they had gas shows in the log, but they never knew about fracturing at that time. Fractures just really new. Now what we did was we drilled in the Caddo, which is here, up higher, and then the Barnett is below it. It's Devonian. Yes. It was below it, so we were making wells in the Caddo, but we always tried to figure out where the gas come from, because the whole Bend Arch, all of that whole area, the gas came from somewhere. And there's big tectonics in the area, a lot of big faulting in the area, and I thought it had some relation to some of the faulting to figure out where the gas came from, because I wanted to find the gas, because my processing plants were going downhill, and my gas sales of natural gas was going down. I had to have another source of gas to help. So as we were penetrating the Barnett, we were looking for gas in Ellenberger, which is below.
Right.
And then by going through the Barnett, we looked at the gas detector, and we could see a little gas show. And then the geologists would look at the cuttings, and they say, oh, you waste your time. You waste your time, Mitchell. You waste your money. That's all I could hear. So I said, well, go ahead and frack it. Let's see what happens. Well, we fracked it. We got maybe a small amount of gas. We had a detector tell us that there's a little gas there. And the Barnett was 250 feet thick, so you knew you had a big reservoir if you could figure out how to make it work. So we spent, you see it in the book, from about 81 to 96 or something to really solve it. We used propane, we used everything you can think of trying to make the frack work. We knew what we had, and we had to prove to people it would work, because no one's able to make this shale work anywhere before then. So we convinced Devon that the technology was sufficient. They took the chance and bought us out for $3.3 billion, and we had tremendous acreage for them. So they got acreage in 3 places, the Barnett, and then 2 of the other places along the same area in Texas. And so I think that Devon really did a big job of understanding how to make it work, has improved it. And I think it's revolutionized the drilling, and most of it the independents did. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I had the book written. I wanted to be sure that the history was done as to how it happened.
Right on. Actually, let me build on that. The book that George is referring to is The Barnett Shale Play, put together by Dan Stewart. And this is a great history of the origins of the Barnett Shale in Texas and the work that was done by you and your team. And it's an excellent story, and it really does capture so many of the challenges you faced and the different people who worked on it. And Dan Stewart is emphatic, and we want to echo that. This wouldn't have happened without your persistence, without your support. And I think you're making a key point here, that this was really your work and the independence work that brought shale forward at a key time. Now, the success of shale, as you've said, is a revolution, and it has made so much gas available to the United States today. This has an opportunity to get the United States less dependent on foreign fuels, more dependent on its own production. Could you give us your thoughts on how you see that going in the future?
Well, I think that that the gas from shale is going to start taking over a lot of the problems that they have on oil. Because right now, making electric power generated out of oil is expensive for use of oil. They ought to use gas, shale gas.
Yeah.
And all the other type of things that require gas to make product for manufacturing should be shale gas.
Harold Carell, our chairman, had everybody read this book in his management team so that they would understand the struggles that you go through in the early days of trying to understand shale plays. As Basim has said, it's gotten very successful. We've gotten very good at it. But worldwide, we're going to run into new shales and new challenges. And it seems to me that persistence, not giving up,
Very important, that's right.
that has been the hallmark of what I think I hear from
Very
Mitchell.
important. There's no doubt that the persistence we had to try to unlock what made it work was very important. Because normally you would have listened to your geologists and engineers, certainly after about 3 or 4 years of giving up on it. But I did not think we had a zone we know had 250 feet thick. We knew the content was gas, tremendous gas, but how do you make it produce?
Yeah, and you did not worry that it was shale at the
That's
time.
right. And therefore
that's remarkable.
we had to try to make it work, and it finally worked it out. I predict half of Pennsylvania we produce in gas in 5 years or 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
That the thing might cover half the state. Great potential. So I think that, just think that if that is to all the acreage that's available for somebody, majors or independents to come in and figure out how to do something with it. So I think this, that the seismic technology goes with the 3D and the technology of what you do. It makes these plays big plays. And I think that there's a good chance to be there. And I think that's going to happen in Canada. That's going to happen in China. That's where the plays are made. It's going to happen in Poland. Because Poland wants to get it to stop Gazprom from getting them on the price. They say they have a fight every year. They shut down the damn gas on them. And they say they got to have some way to stop that stuff. So anyway, I think Canada has a lot at stake, of course. And Canada's using so much gas to do oil sands.
Yes.
Therefore, they've got to find as much gas as they can in Canada, too.
George, again, I'll get to Basim to close here in a moment, but as you said, started the revolution. You're the guy who started it, persisted at it, made sure it happened. You know, a lot of good people that people can read about in the book. There's no question that the lessons you learned went to the people who worked for you and went all over industry and to other companies like Southwestern, where I work, to basically say, okay, how are we going to make shale work?
Yeah.
Because George Mitchell showed that it can be done. Now it's a world thing. It's changing the way we use energy in the United States. It's a career that I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have anything like it if you hadn't done this. So for that, there's a whole lot of people
Well, anyway,
grateful.
I think it's been a remarkable situation how it's revolutionized the whole world, and for this country particularly, because they say now we got 30% more gas reserves in this country just after 2 years of what it had 2 years ago. So we're going to see. I think it's important. It certainly has been a boom for the independents. And
Yeah.
they've been very pleased. That's why I had it done by two geological society and had actual fact done. Did a great job getting the facts from all my top people, how it happened, even though they kept telling me, Mitchell, you waste your money.
That was brilliant. Well, on behalf of myself and Richard and the Canadian Institute, would like very much to thank you for
Thank you.
your time. It's been a pleasure, and the holidays are upon us. So, shalom, salam, and Merry Christmas
Thank
and
you
Happy
very
New Year.
much. Well, good luck to you, I think.
Thank you so much.
And I'd get right in the middle of it. If Pennsylvania has half the states going to have productive gas, they haven't leased up half the states yet.
Yeah, it's
Still got that
remarkable.
great
It's
opportunity.
remarkable.
And I think they're going to find that in many other countries too.